Welcome, everybody. We're so excited that you guys were able to join us for tonight. As you guys know, your education is just so critical, and if you have a chance to learn from someone amazing like Erin, you certainly want to take full advantage of it. So we appreciate you guys joining live, and I'm going to make a note of who you are because I certainly appreciate that, and it definitely shows your dedication also. I think I have met most of you guys in person, but some of you, of course, from the virtual auditions and from the various cities that maybe I haven't been to. Welcome. Nice to meet you guys. I'm Rebecca Deeger. I'm the National Director with Discovery Spotlight. And this is Amber Early. She is our Regional Scouting Director. She also works out of our main office in Charleston, South Carolina. And I'm really excited to present our special guest tonight, Aaron Marcus. He has a wealth of experience, knowledge. He's worked on basically every side of the industry, and he hosted a workshop for us last year for our contestants, and I was even taking notes. There were some things that I was like, wow, those are really great tips. Certainly, you know, it's just so important to hear from people who are living that dream and, you know, doing the work day to day and really experiencing being full-time in the industry. So I'm so glad that you guys are joining us, and I hope that this training session will encourage you guys and motivate you, and just, you know, help you really get get rid of some of those jitters also, because so much of this is really just about getting over our own fears and just, you know, getting comfortable in our own skin. And so I think Aaron's going to give you guys some great tips to help with that as well. And of course, just because I don't see you guys that often, I just want to let you know we're really excited about the upcoming Expo. Corey has been booking flights the last couple of weeks. Our scouting roster is full as far as the agents and scouts who are coming in. We've now moved on to a waiting list. People are really excited to come and see you guys and meet you guys and have just an absolutely great weekend in Myrtle Beach. I know a lot of you guys are in places that are freezing cold right now. So Myrtle Beach is going to be amazing. It's going to be warm. It's going to be beautiful, and it's something certainly to look forward to and get excited about. All right, so I'd love to introduce Aaron Marcus. He has been a full-time actor and commercial model for over 30 years now. He has been cast in more than 1,200 television and radio commercials, corporate films, feature films, television, and print ads. You may have seen him on the TV shows Gotham, his recurring role on House of Cards, Mr. Robot, Do No Harm, Law and Order, CI, Rectify, Halt and Catch Fire, The Wire, West Wing, as well as film projects such as Project Almanac, Philomena, Fishbowl, Buck Run, Eugene, and A Modest Suggestion. He has been in hundreds of commercial modeling ads that have run throughout Northern Europe, North America, Asia, and the Netherlands. His new book, How to Become a Successful Actor and Model, which is why you guys are all here tonight, is considered by many to be one of the most important books on this topic. He is also an expert writer for Backstage, which we actually just advertised with Backstage. I love Backstage. They're amazing. Aaron has given his book, The Job Seminar, over 700 times, spanning 3 continents. He also offers private online mentoring, as well as monthly online workshops like this one. And you can visit his website, howtoactandmodel.com. And he has some amazing giveaway offers as well for videos and training guides. So I will pass it over to Aaron Marcus. Welcome, Aaron. And I'm clapping, and I'm sure everybody else is.
Yes, thanks.
Well, thank you so much, Rebecca. I really appreciate it. Guys, this is so much fun for me, and probably, except for working on a set, these are the kinds of things that I get the most excited about, being able to share information, real life experiences with people. And so I just want to thank you all for giving me the opportunity to do something that I absolutely love doing. And look, I know what it's like for you all because I was in your position, you know, little while ago, but started off knowing nothing. I wish I knew of a convention that was going on, like Discovery. just because I had no idea what I was doing. And I did everything by trial and error. And I spun my wheels and spent money in areas that didn't really make that much sense because I just didn't know better. And I didn't have anybody that I can turn to. So let me tell you what we are going to be talking about today. And like Rebecca had mentioned, at the very end, if you have any specific questions for me, feel free just to fire away. Amber will gather them, and I'll get through as many as I possibly can tonight. So we're going to be talking about the best way to deal with nervousness, how to use it to your advantage, how to approach the agents and managers and other industry professionals during the event itself, important techniques to use, the secret to getting commercial modeling work, make sure you understand contracts, and when the event is over, what should you be doing? So let's get started with the nervousness topic, because that's something that I certainly can relate to. And I know, look, I'm going to be very, very honest here, and this is just the way I do things. Even though I've done this for over 30 years and I have done over 1,200 jobs, there are certain auditions, there are certain jobs that scare me. There are certain projects that make me incredibly nervous. And look, here's the thing, and I'm going to backpedal for 1 second here. I just want to let you know that everything that I say to you tonight is not necessarily the only way to do things. And so I don't want you to think if you hear something from somebody else, a different way of doing things, a different approach, a different philosophy, it doesn't mean that they're wrong and I'm right, or I'm right and they're wrong. It's like I've taken tons of acting classes. There are different kinds of methods and strategies to use. And there is no one right method. I know sometimes people will tell you this is the only way to do it. I just don't believe that. And what I like to do is learn as much as I can from as many people as possible. And I pick and choose the things that I think work best for me. And that's what I use. And so I just wanted to throw that out there because there isn't just one way of doing things. So as far as nervousness goes, um, like I said, there are some projects that make me really nervous. And what I find is, especially people going to an event, people might be told, and the intention is good. I understand it, where maybe you're reading it to a spouse, a boyfriend, a girlfriend, a parent, and they will say to you, look, I've heard you read this commercial a million times, or I've heard you do this monologue. You're really good. You've got it down. There's no reason to be nervous. Just go up there and do it. Well, that's one way of thinking. My thought is, hey, you know what? It's really easy for other people to tell you not to be nervous because they're not doing it. You're the one who has to go up there and do it. So instead of telling people don't be nervous, what I do is I will tell you, yeah, be nervous. You're feeling scared. Acknowledge it. Feel it. Now, here's the thing, though. What I always suggest is you want to use your nervousness to your advantage. And what I mean by that is when you do feel those nerves and you feel those synapses firing and you feel that energy flowing through your body, instead of doing what a lot of people will tell you to do and squash it and get rid of it, I say embrace it. I say use it. Because what I find is that when I am nervous, it gives me more energy. Now, here is the real trick, though. You don't want anybody to see your nervousness, because the fact is there's a lot of money at stake. When you get cast in a TV show or in a feature film or even a TV commercial, they want people who can handle the situation. And if they have concerns that you're not going to be able to pull it off, well, they're probably going to look for somebody else. And the same thing holds true for an agent or a manager. They need people they can depend on. So my suggestion is you feel nervous, acknowledge it, and then here's what you want to do. Use that energy. And there are two things that I do that allows me to use that nervousness in a positive way. One is a physical exercise that I do. And once again, I'm not trying to get rid of it. I want to harness that energy. The other is a mental attitude, and I'm going to share that with you as well. So if I were doing this with you live, I would tell you, stand up. Everybody stand up. I can't stand up either because then you just see my belly button. That's not what I want you to see right here. So for your physical exercise, and look, you're not going to do this in front of other people. You're going to go into a restroom. You're going to close the door. You're going to do it outside someplace. And what you want to do is put one hand over your heart. I was putting here, I'm starting to put my hand in the wrong spot here. Put one hand over your heart and your other hand over your belly button, and close your eyes. Take a really deep breath through your nose. Exercise. It will help you tremendously. And probably the most important thing, even before you do this exercise, be prepared. And what I mean being prepared, know exactly what you're going to do. And I'm going to show you some ways to prepare before your audition that will help with that. But yeah, I mean, you want to make sure that you're not going into an audition thinking, I'll just wing it, who cares? Because that's not a good way to go into an audition. So be prepared, do this physical exercise. And here's the other thing that I do. And look, there are a number of different ways that work for people. Some people, and I tried this once, it just didn't work for me. But some people will visualize. That works for you? Great. And what I mean by that is they are auditioning, let's say, for a feature film. And they'll close their eyes. They see themselves at the Academy Award. They see they're walking past all the paparazzi. They're being interviewed by all the different, people from different television stations, and all of a sudden you're sitting there, you hear your name being called, and you stand up and you're walking up on the stage and you're about ready to, be handed the, okay, if that works for you, do it. I tried it once and I didn't even get a call back for this particular project. I felt really embarrassed. As a matter of fact, here's what I did. I'm trying this visualization. Somebody was telling me about it. I called the agent that submitted me for this audition for this feature film. Called the agent and I said, hey, I just want to make sure you are going to come visit me on the set, because I was so confident I'm getting this job. And she was a little bit puzzled at first because she was thinking, Aaron, you haven't even auditioned. But she didn't say it, but that was the idea. I didn't even get a call back, and it was very embarrassing for me. So here's another approach. And it's very different. This is what I do, and I find it helpful. Now, I know we haven't met. We haven't spent time together. You don't really know very much about me. But let me just tell you, I am not a negative guy. No, it's just not in my nature. I don't walk around saying I'm horrible. Nobody likes me. I'm not any good. However, I'm also very, very realistic. And when I go to a GO-see is the audition for models. So let's say if I'm going to a GO-see in New York, here's a perfect example. So I just went to one pretty recently, it was about a week ago. They were seeing people from 10 to 5 over a 2-day period. Now, it is true, they did wind up hiring, I think there were about 16 people, different types of people, different ages, different ethnicities, different looks, and things like that. But you can imagine the hundreds amounts of people who showed up at this GO-see. When I go to an audition and I go to a GO-see, my thought is, what's there to be nervous about? I'm not getting this job anyway. And once again, it's not a negative thing. I'm not saying I'm not any good. I'm just looking at it from a realistic point of view. They're seeing a lot of people. And the crazy thing is, my goal for every audition that I go on or every GO-see that I attend, my number one goal, it's not booking the job. And I find that by not having that as my number one goal, that also alleviates some of the pressure, some of the tension. some of the nervousness because, I don't have to get this job. This thing is a must for, I'm going in there and my number one goal for every project is to have a good time. I want to enjoy myself. Now, I might have just gone 4.5 hours each way to get to this audition or this go-see, or hey, it could be an 11-hour drive if I'm heading down to Atlanta. So that part of it might not be so much fun, but the 1.5, 2 minutes, maybe 3 minutes, depending on the situation that I'm in front of a camera, that is fun. That's my goal. And I think you can use that same kind of philosophy at the event. When you are there and you are performing, get rid of the idea of, I've got to get a contract. I've got to get these callbacks. I need, a manager, to want to work. Look, if it happens, that's wonderful. But use that time period instead of feeling anxious and nervousness and feeling this pressure of having to make something big happen, something that's out of your control, by the way, to just enjoy the experience. And I find that alleviates a lot of the pressure for me. And I'm not saying that the nervousness goes away. It's still there, but it's calmed down a little bit. And you also just need to make sure that nobody sees that nervousness because they just don't want to work with people who look nervous. My second goal for every audition, I want to learn from it. And sometimes I walk out of an audition and I think, oh, I wish I would have done that. That would have been more interesting. Or did I take proper direction from the photographer or the agent, or the casting director? And then the third thing, look, if I happen to book it, that's icing on the cake. But the fact is, just getting the audition, that's winning. Because, and you guys might not know this, I took a great workshop with a wonderful casting director. And he casts mostly in the Southeast, in North Carolina, in Atlanta as well. I don't know if that's really considered Southeast, but Louisiana. And he was telling everybody at this workshop, for every role that he casts, he typically will have a minimum of 500 headshots and resumes submitted to him. And I do monthly online interviews, and they are webinars, and I sell the videos. And I was interviewing a TV commercial casting director in Los Angeles. For every character that he is bringing into audition, he'll see a minimum of 1,500 headshots. And there aren't exact numbers here, but typically having about 30 people brought in, that's probably pretty average. Sometimes it might be less, sometimes there might be a little bit more. So just getting the audition is incredible. Just like, just being invited to go to this event, that's exciting. That's a tremendous accomplishment. So the interesting thing is, it's not about booking the job. It's not about getting the contracts, because ultimately, you never know what might happen. And this is the first time I've ever talked about this, because this just happened to me last week. And I was telling you, I went to this go-see. They were seeing people for days, a couple of days for this thing. I didn't book it. Here's the crazy thing. It was about, I'm trying to think, it was one day before the shoot. The agent who submitted me for this go-see contacted me and said, "Hey, Aaron, by any chance, are you available tomorrow?" I said, "Yeah, I am." For what? Is this a go-see? She said, "No." She said, "Remember that go-see you went on and you didn't book?" I said, "Yeah, sure." She said, "Well, the guy who booked it got sick. I guess I was the second choice, and they wanted to know if I was available." I said, "Sure." And so I wound up doing the job. So I'm not saying, hey, you go to the event, agent, doesn't offer you a contract, but the person who did, guy gets sick or drops out of the business and you're the next choice. But the interesting thing is, you just never know. So use your nervousness to your advantage. Use that energy. Don't let people see your nervousness. When you go into that area to audition, you want to have this little theme in the back of your mind running on a loop. It's like, hey, if I book this job, that's great. If I don't book this job, that's great. I'll book something else. Just like you're meeting with an agent. Hey, love to work with you. You know, you seem like a really good agent. But if it doesn't work out, that's cool. I'm going to work with somebody else. That's the kind of attitude you want to have, because the industry professionals love working with those kinds of people, people who are exuding confidence. So anyhow, that's what you want to do with your nervousness. Okay, the best way to approach the industry professionals. And here's, it's kind of funny whenever I talk about it in this way, I always kind of feel like I was on a safari one year. It was really cool, just going through this beautiful area, and you're seeing zebras, and there are lions and giraffes and rhinos and all these really exotic animals. And they tell you very, clearly, this is what you want to do, this is what you don't want to do. So, be careful when you're approaching. So same thing here when you're at the event. Be careful when you're approaching these people. Look, the fact is, the managers, the agents, casting directors, look, they're humans, just like you, just like me. They happen to have a job that you want to be more involved with, but it doesn't make them more important or less important than anybody else in this world. So treat them the same way that you would like to be treated. So if you see an agent, and I'm not sure, and maybe you might be told something different. I'm not sure if there are certain policies or certain things you're supposed to do or not supposed to do. So let me just throw this out. And then if you're not supposed to do it, fine. Then certainly listen to what you're supposed to do. But I have seen people walk over to, let's say, an agent, show them a headshot, show them a photo, show them a resume, whatever you have, and then they start backpedaling. And they start explaining, look, this is my first headshot. I know it's not perfect, that, my hair's like a little bit out of place. There's some shadows. Don't get into any of that stuff. What you want to do is show them a headshot, show them a resume, and ask them, can you give me any feedback? Love to hear your ideas. And that's it. Don't say anything else. They know you haven't gotten the Academy Award yet. And so listen to what they have to say. Filter everything. You might run into a great agent, an agent who has great contacts in the industry, is friends with all the major casting directors, knows how to negotiate, knows, what kinds of roles are right for you, somebody who's very proactive and pro model, pro actor, but they might not be able to break down a headshot and really explain to you what they like, what they don't like, why, what changes to make. Not everybody has that ability. So listen to what they have to say, but filter it. It might be invaluable information. Sometimes agents, they know it when they see it, but to actually analyze it, that might not be their area of expertise. So, just be respectful. And if somebody says this isn't a good time, well, of course, don't start fighting with them. The other thing too is and certainly I don't expect this to happen, but you just never know in this world. If you get an agent or some industry professional who's not being very nice to you about it, and they do something like, hey, look, if I'm interested in calling you back, I'll call you back. Don't bother me. Really, come on. If you get that kind of stuff, don't get into a discussion. Don't get into, hey, sir, there's really no need to talk to me. Don't get into any of that stuff. Just walk away and just know, number one, this isn't a person you want to work with. And two, I'm just glad, just be glad you're not married to that person. And so, the other thing too is, I wouldn't follow somebody into a restroom and start sliding headshots under the stall. That's probably not being very respectful either. So, but I think it can be really helpful to get feedback. And if you keep hearing similar comments, then okay, this is really helpful. Maybe this is something I'm going to do differently next time. Okay, certain techniques to use for every audition. Here's the very first thing. And a lot of people just kind of gloss over this, but it's crucial. And it can make the difference between somebody watching a performance and completely shutting you down. It's when you slate. And if you're not familiar with that term, Slating is a way that actors identify them during an audition, whether it's an in-person audition or whether you are recording an audition from home. Slating can mean a whole lot of different things. It could be everything from say your name, say your height, and that's it. Maybe it's your name, your height, your agent, and that's it. It could be all three of those things and the character you're reading for. It could be all of those things or part of those things and the city that you live in. Maybe are you willing to work as a local hire, meaning you live out of state, they don't want to pay for transportation or putting people up in a hotel. Are you willing to work as a local? It could be a whole lot of different things. So when you are asked to slate, always ask, what would you like in the slate? It's crucial because there is no one specific way of slating. Sometimes, at an event, maybe it's your number, maybe it's your first, who knows? So just ask. Here's the other thing. There are two different ways that people slate. I'm going to share with you both ways, and then I'll tell you what I do and why. So some people will tell you to slate in character. So if you're giving your name and your height, and let's say you are kind of nervous, the character's a little shy, a little unassuming, maybe it's something like, hi, I'm Aaron Marcus. I'm 6 feet tall, something like that. And then they immediately think, oh, that's the person. That's the character. Okay. And that can be very helpful for some people. Here's what I do though. What I'd like to do is I want to slate as myself. I want to slate in a warm, friendly, inviting kind of way, as if I'm meeting someone for the very first time at a party or at an event, almost like I'm shaking their hand. And it's like, oh, hi, I'm Aaron Marcus, something like that. Then I will slightly turn my head away from the camera or wherever, well, it will be away from the camera because you will slate directly into the lens of the camera. If you are auditioning for a TV commercial, then you're going to come right back into the camera. If you're auditioning for a film or a television project, then you're going to be looking camera left, maybe camera right. So camera left is your right. This would be how I would be looking at the, where I'd be looking for an audition for a feature film or television show. Typically, if it's an in-person audition, they'll have a reader, somebody who's reading lines with me, and that's where they're going to be standing or seated. So I will slightly turn away after slating as myself, then I come back in character. The reason why I like to do it that way is because then people can see, oh, this person's an actor. If they see you as the character, then they might be thinking, this person seems perfect, but what happens if on the set they ask you to make an adjustment with your read, with the character? Well, if you're that person and you don't really have acting skills, maybe they're not so sure if you're capable of doing that. If they see that you do have acting skills and you can make that transition, I think it makes it a much, much better slate. Here's one other little trick that I learned recently that I love, and I do it every time. Quite often, let's say I'm reading for Dr. Smith. So typically what people will do in a slate, hi, I'm Aaron Marcus, and I'm reading for the role of Dr. Smith. Okay, that's one way of doing it. I never do that anymore. Here's what I do. It's a subtle change, but I think it's powerful. Hi, I'm Aaron Marcus. I'm Dr. Smith. I tell them that I am that character. That's me. And it's just a subtle way of letting them know I'm the person for this role. So anyhow, those are the two different ways that you can slate, but make sure that you do it in a way that they clearly understand you, because sometimes people mumble through their slate. They end in a question mark. Hi, I'm Aaron Marcus. I'm reading, I'm reading for this. I'm reading for the role of Dr. Smith, or I'm Aaron Marcus. I always think, is the person not sure what their name is? I'm Aaron Marcus. No, it's Aaron Marcus. So make it a statement, not a question mark, and make sure that people can understand you clearly. The way I like to do is take that little beat afterwards, boom, then get started with the audition. Okay, so going through the slate. Now, this is another way of preparing before your audition. And it's the 5 W's. The 5 W's are 5 questions you need to ask yourself and answer very specifically prior to your audition. This is as you are studying your sides. Look, sides are the words in the script. Typically, they'll use the words copy if it's you're auditioning for a TV commercial. And I would do the exact same thing. So just really quickly, because I know I only have like about an hour here and I'm kind of condensing a 6-hour workshop into a 1-hour segment here. But let me just tell you this because it's on my mind and I want to share it with you. When I get the script, I will just read it over a bunch of times. I'm not acting. I'm not thinking about the character. I'm reading it like it's a laundry list, like I'm going grocery shopping. So if my lines were important techniques to use for every audition, the way that I would read, instead of important techniques to use for every audition, what I'm doing is important techniques to use for every audition. That's how I read the sides. I read it through a number of times. No acting. I want to make sure I understand all the words. If I don't, I've got to look them up. I want to make sure I know how to pronounce everything. I want to make a quick decision. Who is the scene about? If the scene's not about me, I'm not going to try to make it about me. That is a huge mistake that actors make for auditions. They want to show off. They want to show the casting director how powerful they are. And let's say you've got a one-line read and you're the bartender and the star is coming into your bar and your one line is, what would you like to drink? I remember helping a casting director and I worked as a reader and the actor came in and one line was, what would you like to drink? And instead of saying it in a way that made it show that the scene's not about him, it's about the star who's sitting at the bar. He wanted to show everybody how talented he was and how deep he was. And he read it, and I'm not exaggerating. It was something like this. What would you like to drink? And so, I mean, I didn't want to laugh because that would have been really embarrassing to the guy, but it was ridiculous. For a line like that, if I was reading it for an audition, I might not even look up. I might be, I might be like cleaning the bar, maybe it's like, hey, what would you like to drink? That's the way you want to do it. But anyhow, just wanted to share that one with you. But for the 5 W's, number 1, who are you talking to? Make it specific. If you're doing a monologue, when I'm working with people privately online, and I'll ask somebody, okay, so you're working on a monologue, who are you talking to? Typically they'll say, well, I'm talking to the character Jeff, who's in this play. That's not the right answer. You don't have a personal connection with Jeff. You need to think of somebody in your life, a real person who you would be having this type of communication with. Or if it's a TV commercial, don't tell me you're talking to the audience who's watching this commercial. There's no connection there. Think of a real person. Okay, what are you talking about? That would be really evident. Where is this taking place? Why would that be important? I'll tell you why. Because for every audition you do, you want the casting director and the director to believe that the scene is actually happening. It's not an audition. You are actually shooting the scene on the set. So if you're having this scene take place in a kitchen, and the person who you're talking to is sitting across the table from you, it's just the two of you, and you're probably about 3 feet apart from each other, well, you're going to talk very differently to that person in that situation than if you're walking down 7th Avenue in New York by Madison Square Garden, where it's incredibly noisy and there's a lot of commotion going on. And if you talk like this, they never hear you. So know exactly where you're having this conversation. When? What time is this happening? Once again, you're going to talk very differently to a person if it's 3 o'clock in the morning or if it's 12 o'clock in the afternoon. And then why? Why are you saying these words to this person? What's the purpose of these words being said? The more specifically you answer those questions, the more interesting your audition's going to be. Okay, let me move on. So the one secret to getting commercial modeling jobs really quickly. So you might be familiar with fashion, and everybody, knows about supermodels, runways, designer clothes. Just really quickly, just so you know the statistics, if you are a woman and you want to be a supermodel, you're going to be between 5'9" and 6 feet tall. Yes, there are some exceptions to the rule, but typically all the supermodels are going to have those numbers. Measurements are going to be 34, 24, 34. If you haven't done anything in the industry and you're over 21, it's going to be really tough. I mean, most women, young women who are breaking into the fashion, I'm talking about high fashion. I'm not talking about getting a local runway show at a clothing store or bridal shop near you. I'm talking about serious fashion work, New York Fashion Week, or you're working in Paris or in Milan. You got to get started at a pretty young age. Guys are going to be between 6 feet and 6'2". Typically, you're going to wear a size 40 jacket, could be a 40 long. And it's a very specific kind of job. Just so you know, the reason why you've got to have those unusual statistics, you've got to be born, with certain numbers, is because the designers create samples of their work in sizes that they think look best. So basically, the models have to fit into their sample sizes. They don't make the samples for the models to fit the models. So that's fashion modeling. There's a whole other world of modeling out there that has nothing to do with fashion. It's called commercial modeling. And you see us everywhere. You'll see us in newspaper ads, magazines, brochures, direct mail pieces, on billboards, posters, on sides of buses, on the internet, on packages. And what's really cool with commercial modeling, unlike fashion, you can live anywhere. Pretty much you're going to find commercial modeling work around the world. You'll find it in small markets. You'll find it in big markets. There are no age restrictions in commercial modeling. In commercial modeling, I've worked with infants. Now, I've never worked with kids who were 2 weeks old. I think, and I could be wrong, I think at least in the film and TV industry, a baby has to be a minimum of 2 weeks, to work in the industry. Typically, I think the youngest I've ever worked with was like 2 or 3 month old kids. I've worked with people in their 80s and every age in between. They need people who have great bodies, who are in incredible shape. If you're doing exercise, types of shots, there are people who are overweight who get cast. There are people who are incredibly handsome and beautiful, people who are a little bit not so beautiful and attractive. You just never know, what they're looking for. It depends on the project. So that's one of the reasons why I love doing commercial modeling work. And what's interesting is sometimes I know I've talked to actors and they say, no, look, I'm an actor. I don't do anything with modeling. Well, I think you're really missing out on a lot of things, because with commercial modeling, you get a chance to use your acting skills. And the fact is, when you open yourself up, you just never know what can happen. I've done commercial modeling ads that have turned into national television commercials because I was the person in the print ad and they decided they wanted to use the same person in the TV spot. And I got hired for it. That's pretty cool. And the same thing holds true. Sometimes there are models who I've spoken with and they say, no, I'm not an actor, not interested in acting. I just want to model. Okay, well, I understand it, but just keep in mind that there are lots of even fashion models who get hired for TV commercials. So, I'm not saying you've got to spend 20 years studying method acting and, being able to, cry on cue. But you do want to learn, at least I recommend that you learn some basic acting skills so that if that opportunity comes up, instead of saying no, or you can't do it, or if you get a chance to audition and you're just not prepared, now you know what you're doing. So with commercial modeling, probably the most important thing is, number one, learning how to put together powerful commercial shots. Now, I can tell you for the event, if you've already had photos done, that's great. For the event, all you need are sharp, clean images of you. That's all that's needed. What I'm going to be sharing here in the next few minutes is kind of like a master's degree in commercial modeling. These are the kinds of photos that you're going to do after the event takes place in April. And the reason why I'm saying that is because the information I'm going to be giving you is going to take more time to really think about, to do research with. You want to find a photographer that has the time to do it. And so, but let me just give you the information so at least you're thinking in these terms. Now, learning how to put together the right shots is crucial. The other component of having success as a commercial model is also being able to show a variety of expressions and emotions during the shoot. I had a commercial modeling job yesterday. It was so much fun, a pharmaceutical ad. And I can't give out all the details just because it was shot yesterday and everything hasn't been approved. It hasn't run yet. But it was connected with a type of medicine that helps people with a certain disease. I can say that. So here's the interesting thing. And I talk to the photographer beforehand when I'm on the set. And if there is somebody from the advertising agency, I will ask them as well to get a better idea of what they need. So for this particular one, I've got this disease. I mean, not really, but that's what this character is facing. And I'm going to beat it. I'm confident. This is going to help me and I'm going to overcome it. And that was one of the kind of looks they wanted. And they had me run through a whole variety of expressions and emotions. And I had to be able to pull them off. These are all very believable looks, not over exaggerated, over the top, cartoonish kinds of looks, which sometimes that's what they want. These are very real. And so here's the technique that I created and that I use and I share with others. So first thing, and this is part of a homework assignment that you can practice, is come up with different categories for basic expressions and emotions. So, and I'll just give you a couple right now. Let's say happy, sad, frustrated, angry. So if somebody says to me, okay, so you are a doctor in this commercial modeling ad and you're happy. Okay, well, that doesn't really tell me very much. The reason why it doesn't tell me much is because why? Why am I happy? You know, did I save somebody's life? Okay, that's a kind of happiness. Maybe there was some crazy patient who sued everybody in my practice. I never even saw this patient, and my name is part of this lawsuit, this malpractice case. It just got thrown out. That's another kind of happiness. Maybe it's kind of a combination of happy, relieved, you know, finally I got this thing out of my life. This is nuts. How could this person sue? Okay. Or maybe I decided I can't accept insurance anymore. I can't run my practice. I can't, you know, I didn't go to medical school to be told by insurance companies, I've got to see 8 patients an hour, you know, or 10 patients an hour. I can't practice medicine. That's not what I'm going to do. I decided I'm not seeing patients. I'm not going to see or use insurance anymore. Okay, that's another kind of happiness. So what you want to do is have some of those basic categories of emotions, put them on a piece of paper, and then underneath it, write specifically if it's happy. Why are you happy? Did someone just propose to you? Did you get into a college that you wanted to, that you were applying to? Did you just, have a child? I mean, there's all different, did you hit the lottery? All different kinds of happiness. Make it very specific and have a nice long list of all these different kinds of emotions. And then what you're going to do is think of real experiences in your life that will give you that emotion. Then the next trick is you slightly look away from the camera. And what I do is I will say a word or two words, sometimes just make a sound that helps me relive that experience. Then I look up into the camera or wherever the photographer wants me to look. Maybe the photographer will say, okay, look camera right. Maybe I need to look at the ceiling, whatever it is. And what you'll find is when you work this way, all of a sudden your brain will tell your body what to do. And that energy will shoot out of your eyes. Imagine this. If you are upset with somebody, you're angry, somebody did something to you and it really disturbed you. Well, if you're going to be yelling at the person, you don't have to think, hey, how could you do this? That was a really nasty thing. You don't have to think, well, should I be pointing like this? Or should I go like this? Or should I have my hands to my... Look, when you're feeling it, it happens. Your brain tells your body what to do. This is the exact same situation. It becomes real. So this is my recall method. So I'm going to show you really quickly how the shots turned out by using this technique. This was a national ad campaign. It was a IMAX movie all about Antarctica, the really big shield. And the whole concept was, this movie is so realistic, you feel like you were there in Antarctica. And the art director, the person from the ad agency, made it very clear. He said, look, I want people to feel like when they're watching this movie, they are really in Antarctica. And of course, it's freezing in Antarctica. So here's the tricky part. I want you to look like you're freezing, but you're having a good time. I don't want people to think they're going to be having a bad time. So I had to think, what could I be doing outside? Playing with my family in the snow, freezing, but having a good time. And then we went through a whole lot of expressions like that. And then he stopped and said, hey, now you're frozen solid. Hey, now you don't even realize you've got icicles and penguins. You're just watching this movie. And so that's why using this technique will be incredible. This one's really neat. This was Freddie, a capuchin monkey, and the agent did exactly what she was supposed to do. She called me. She said, Aaron, you booked the job. Just want to let you know, you are going to be working with a monkey. Are you comfortable working with a monkey? Now, I'm an animal person. I love animals. Animals really like me. I just connect well. And I'm thinking, yeah, are you kidding me? I'm going to get a chance to play with a monkey all day. That's pretty incredible. So Freddie, this capuchin monkey, and we were doing really well. He liked me. I really liked him. He was picking at the back of my head. And we started to shoot. And after 7 photos, I don't know what spooked him, but he jumped off of my shoulders and he went flying across the room and he bit the assistant photographer. It was nasty. It was a horrible slice. They put a tourniquet on him, rushed him to the emergency room. And to make a long story really short, the reason why I'm mentioning this to you is because the art director from the ad agency walks over to me and he looks over at Freddie now, who's in the corner. And he goes, gosh, I don't know what happened with Freddie, but looks like he's calmed down now. This is a national ad. I got to get this shot done today. And I'm just saying, I'm thinking, hey, you know what? I completely understand. Tell you what, let's take a look at the shots because I think we have it. That would have been the only time in my life I would have walked off the set. We did have it. This is one of the 7 shots. And the reason why I'm mentioning this to you is because, look, if you were ever asked to perform a certain skill for a job, if you can do it, say yes. If you can't do it, personally, I don't use the philosophy of, yeah, just say yes and just learn how to do it. I've heard horror stories of people who said, oh yeah, I can ride a horse. How hard would that be? And then the person, matter of fact, this one particular case, the woman showed up. It was a modeling job. And this woman had never been on a horse before. And she figured, how hard could it be? I'm going to be, sitting on a horse. Well, she had to actually gallop. And she didn't realize how big those animals are. And she couldn't even get on the horse. She freaked out and they fired her immediately. Fortunately, the model who was second choice was in the area. They brought her in. Her agent fired her. It was just a horrible situation. So if it's something I can't do, like I remember there was a job and they said it was it might have been a TV. I can't remember. It might have been a TV commercial. They said, "Hey, can you do a standard British dialect?" I said, "No, can't do it." And maybe I could have gotten the words and played with it. Honestly, I didn't want to make myself look bad. I didn't want to embarrass my agent because I'm representing my agent on the set as well. So if you can do it, great. If you can't, don't. But if you're ever on a set and they ask you to do something that you didn't agree to ahead of time and you feel like it's putting yourself in any kind of physical harm, you say no. And I don't care what they say to you. You'll never work in this town. Your agent's going to. Let me just tell you, there's nothing more important than taking care of yourself. As neat as these jobs are, trust me, I love doing this work. But I'm not going to potentially hurt myself and do serious damage because somebody asked me to do something that I don't feel comfortable doing. And let me also just tell you, any agent that would drop you for not doing something that you felt uncomfortable doing, it's not an agent worth having, and you'll find another agent. So as you can see here, lots of different expressions, lots of different emotions, very different from shot to shot to shot to shot to shot. And something you might want to consider in the future, not necessarily right now, but I know a lot of times when we're doing photos, especially if you're only doing one or two, you're not going to be thinking of this, but after the event, do a shot where you look sick, where you feel sick. So maybe you have one shot where you look great, incredibly, handsome or beautiful. And then you got a shot, you look miserable. Because what I'd like to do is bang people over the head with the look. So that way, if a photographer or art or creative director at the ad agency needs somebody for a shot where you feel uncomfortable, you feel sick, you feel miserable. Well, if all they see are nice shots, then they might not be able to see it. But if I can show them, yeah, hey, look how sick this person looks, then they go, wow, that's the person. And even if the job they're looking for, the character they're looking for, isn't either on my composite sheet or on the website, if they can see this wide range of believable expressions and emotions, they'll probably say, yeah, you know what? I'm not seeing that particular look, but this person's really good. They have a wide range. Yeah, let's hire the person. So 6 shots are cool. Okay, so once again, you're saying all different kinds of shots. Now I'm healing. I've gone from being sick to a healer. I'm showing you this one. So this is me throwing Johnny Depp out of the courtroom and Crybaby. The reason why I'm showing you this is, and you might not be able to see it real well, but they created the tears for him. And what you want to do if you're doing, let's say, an exercise shot, instead of using, and I'm trying to remember the exact name of this product. It's like clear syrup, and they just drop it in there and it will stay. And maybe it'll come to me later and I'll tell you. It can be a dangerous thing to use. And like if you're working with a professional makeup artist, that's fine. But if the stuff gets in your eyes, it's going to sting like crazy. Your eyes are going to turn red. So if you're going to do an exercise shot, instead of just standing there with a weight in your hand and smiling, if you had a great workout, your hair is going to be a little messy. There should be some perspiration. So what I would recommend is for the perspiration, run around, get sweaty, or get someone to spray you with some warm water. That's a much, much better way of doing it. And just on a little bit of a side note, like I don't know what the guy's really like in real life. I can tell you with the couple days that I spent with him on the set, Johnny Depp was a really nice guy and was very, very, very nice to people. Which, once again, on a side note, let me just ask you a favor. For those of you who go on and have tremendous success in the industry, I've got 2 requests for you. Number 1, please treat people the same way that you would like to be treated, whether it's the person that's cleaning out the porta potty in your trailer, or the director, or the extras on the set. I'm not saying you've got to be loved by everybody, but just treat them respectfully. The other thing is, if you've got your own TV show or you're starring in a movie, hey, if you could bring me in for a couple days work, hey, I'll even take 1 day. That's cool. I greatly appreciate it. You can reach me, Aaron, Aaron, at howtoactandmodel.com, and that would be wonderful. But really, I mean, I guess one of the things I just wanted to say about that is, look, the fact is, yeah, there are people out there who have more money than you could ever imagine having. They own their own islands and stuff. And as important as this stuff is, you know, look, we're not curing diseases. We're not solving world hunger here. And so I just think it's really important to keep yourself grounded, keep things in perspective of importance in the world, and make sure that you continue to surround yourself with people who you trust, people who were there for you at the beginning. Probably more importantly, people who are willing to say no to you, people who are willing to say, cut it out, and not just have an entourage of people who are only saying how great you are and everything, you know, just becoming yes men so that, you know, they can stay within your little group. Because honestly, and I've seen this happen for people who only base their happiness on how well they're doing. It's dangerous. It's a dangerous way to live, because at some point, you know, that fame starts to fade. And if the only thing that's making you feel good about yourself is the fact that people are, you know, screaming for autographs and want to do pictures and selfies with you, once that fame starts to drift, you're going to be in a tough place. So, you know, just keep everything in perspective. And booking the job, not booking the job, I'm not saying don't feel bad if you don't get it. Look, there are jobs I really wanted to get. I didn't get them. And sure, I really wish I did. But I've also learned not to beat myself up and not to feel like I'm bad and I'm not any good because I didn't book it. Look, the fact is, when you don't book the job, it might not have had anything to do with your audition. You might have given the best audition. And this holds true for the event as well. Maybe you're not getting a contract with the manager, and maybe you gave the greatest monologue of anybody there. But maybe that manager already manages somebody in your category. They're not going to bring somebody else in. Who knows? Maybe you remind them, you know, of an ex-spouse or ex-girlfriend, and then they'll be reminded of that. And so a lot of times what it comes down to is who is the best fit for that particular project. And I can tell you, for House of Cards, I auditioned for that show 15 times. It was the 15th audition when I booked a recurring role. 14 other times, they said no. And so the way that I viewed it was, this is fantastic. They liked what I did, but I wasn't the perfect person for it. And they kept bringing me back, because I can tell you, a casting director is not going to bring you back a second time if they don't like what you did. So anyhow, just wanted to mention that to you. So I'm going to zip through just a couple other different expressions. That's a very different expression for me. Very different. This is Molson beer. Pretty cool. Another kind of look. And as you can see, very, very different looks. And it's because I have to be a chameleon. I'm not a good looking guy. I understand it. So what I do is I use my acting skills. This happens to be for Disney World. And this job, because they needed someone who could scream and let loose and have a good time. It's, you know, be a kid again, leave your kids at home. You came to Disney World when your kids were young. Now they're older. Come back and be a kid again. That particular ad got me this job because they needed that kind of look. That job got me this job, the Virginia Lottery ad. So that's why I like the philosophy of banging people over the head with the look. If you happen to have great hands, legs, feet, eyes, hair, teeth, there are body part models, and those are my hands. And it was pretty cool. I've done a number of hand modeling jobs. This was a funny thing. It was the Wall Street Journal. I'm excited. And to make a long story short, the photographer kept saying, "No, I need you to bring this this paper up a little bit higher, a little bit higher." And I said, "Really, this high?" He said, "Yep, that's it." So that's me in the Wall Street Journal. Just another kind of look. And this really sums up everything. This is a Pennsylvania Lottery poster. And it's actually for Valentine's Day, pretty appropriate. And when you give her chocolate, you get this. You give her flowers, you get that. But when you give her the lottery ticket on Valentine's Day, watch out. And so they needed different expressions very quickly based on the different kinds of looks. Okay, really quickly here, there's something called editorials. You might be familiar with the term. You might not know exactly what it means. Editorials are not ads. And that's why you get paid so much less when you are hired for an editorial. That holds true in the fashion world as well. Editorials are photographs. It might be the front cover of a magazine. It might be a photograph that goes along with an article. This is me in Maxim magazine, and there was an article about how long do men live. And I'm the funeral home director, and I'm sizing you up. And if you eat a certain way and exercise a certain amount and get a certain amount of sleep, I can kind of gauge and guess how long you're going to live. This is pretty cool. This is it was in a medical journal, and it was one of the highlights of my career. It was an article about hemorrhoids, things not to do, like sit on the toilet with, the Sunday New York Times and sit there for 10 hours. This was a Pennsylvania magazine or Philadelphia magazine editorial, how people are protecting themselves today. So just to kind of sum these things up, what's really helpful, and this is for after, this is post-convention, this is your master's degree in commercial modeling, make your shots look like ads. Show a variety of expressions and emotions. And I'm just going to go through a couple of them very, very quickly here. You can actually find ads either in magazines, maybe stock photography websites. And when you see an ad that allows you to say, this is me, this is a shot that I can do, well then make a copy of it and use that as your template for your photo. So if you are a woman, you want to present yourself as a mom and a businesswoman, bingo, here you go. Great, great concept. You could pull this off. The kid is a prop. This kid's a prop. The balls are props. All these are props. And you always want to think, what could this be an ad for? Maybe this is for a product that makes work more efficient and you can spend more time with your kids. Maybe it's for a daycare center. Really cute kid, and it's a really nice ad for, actually, it's Valentine's Day. Here's another, this is an interesting shot. So you're not going to have any products in these shots. So you're not going to have any of this stuff at all. This is the shot. And this is a great idea. Now you don't have to puncture your tire and let all the air out. You can just have your hood up and you're standing by the side of the road. You're concerned. And it could be an ad for, roadside service. I think it's a really interesting idea. As you can see, you don't have to be in great shape necessarily to get commercial modeling work. I love this shot. I would cast this woman as a doctor any day. The patient, she's a prop. The other props in the shot, she's got a lab coat, she's got a stethoscope, there's a scale in the background. I mean, it looks like a doctor's office. And this can be an ad for a lot of different things. And that's the whole idea. Make your shots actually look like ads. Another really interesting idea. This is an exercise, type of shot for a product because she got injured. This one happens to be for a jewelry company, but if you cut out all this stuff, maybe it's for a tutoring company. That could be interesting as well. Love this idea. Once again, this is the shot. And because you're not going to have any headlines, you're not going to have any copy, you're not going to have the product in there, but you know what's going on. The greasy plate, that's the prop. And great expression, really like that. So here's a test shot, and that's what I'm explaining to you. Create some test shots at some point for photos that are right for you. And this is one many, 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 many years ago. And at that time period, I believe that I should be cast as the young dad. So I set up a shot and I was the young dad. My son offered to work with me on this one. And I was thinking, hey, maybe this is for college education funds, 529 plans. Maybe it's a reading program for kids. And it wasn't a coincidence that I started booking young dad ads after I had this in my portfolio. My kids got older. That's not my wife. It was another model who wanted to do a shot with me. And I wanted to combine dad and business guy. So that way I can be considered for both. And I was thinking maybe it's for insurance, for the times you're not going to be there. Maybe it's for big brothers, big sisters. Thought that was an interesting idea. I want to share with you information about this document. If you are given a model release form, and I've got this on page 74 in my book, at the end of every modeling job, you should be asked to sign a model release form. This is a legal document. Now, this is probably different, slightly different. You might be asked to sign some kind of release form for the event. It's very different. This is after you've done an ad. And most models will sign this as is without making any changes at all. You always want to try to make a change because you could lose thousands and thousands of dollars. You will find either these exact words, I put them in blue here, or very, very similar words in the model release form, basically saying that you are giving the photographer permission to use your image for any purpose and through any media. They can't, either you or your agent negotiated a fee based on its usage. So if your ad is running in a newspaper, magazine, brochure, direct mail piece, junk mail, then typically you'll get either a flat fee for the day or an hourly fee. If it's something that's called a high exposure format, those are billboards, posters, sides of buses, on the internet, you should get a bonus on top of whatever you're getting paid for the day, because you could actually lose work being in a high exposure format. Now, don't get the wrong idea. You want to be in a high exposure format. That Virginia lottery ad I did, it was pretty cool. I don't know if, how many of you are familiar with 95? It's a road that goes all the way from Florida all the way up to Canada. And I was driving south on 95. I see a truck coming, on the other side of 95. And all of a sudden I noticed, that's me on the side of the truck. That was pretty cool. Now, the reason why you could actually lose work is because if you are doing an ad, let's say for a national bank, let's say Bank of America, and you are up on billboards throughout the state of Texas, well, no other bank's going to hire you, so you could lose work that way. Or sometimes you just get overexposed, and maybe there is a restaurant ad and they want to hire a family. They're going to cast a family, and they might look at you and they might say, yeah, she's perfect for this, but I've seen her all over the place for that, Bank of America billboard. So let's get a fresh face. So to help compensate you for potential loss of work, you should get a bonus. So that's why I recommend that whenever you get the model release form, find these words, scratch them out, and write in there specifically how your agent negotiated the job. If it's running in a newspaper, put newspaper only. For magazine only. You initial it, then you sign it. And that way, if they decide they want to use this in a high exposure format, now they have to renegotiate with your agent. Really quickly, if you ever run into a situation, the photographer freaks out, what are you doing? You can't make any changes. What I do is I don't explain it. I just blame it on my agent, and I say, look, my agent said she would kill me if I signed this as is. Do me a favor, call my agent, whatever he or she wants me to do, that's what I'll do. Sometimes agents will fight and say to the photographer, what's the problem? Look, we already talked about this. This is running in a newspaper. So I asked my model to clarify it. It's going to be running in a newspaper. Or sometimes, and I find this especially in smaller markets, sometimes the agent doesn't want to ruffle any feathers with the photographer, and they might say, look, just sign it as is, because the agent gets a lot of work from the photographer. And even if she loses some money because it goes into a high exposure format, it's in her best interest or his best interest to not create problems. In that case, not happy, but I would follow the agent's wishes, because I always pick and choose my fights very carefully with agents, and I'd probably let that one go. Two things I wanted to talk about before we do wind up here and start with Q&A. Number one, I want to talk to you about monologues. It's really important that you find a monologue that you can connect with. I remember once working with somebody, and it was, I think she was 13, something like that. and she wanted to read a monologue, work on a monologue with me. And I said, okay, great. So what's the monologue all about? Well, I thought this was really interesting. My husband left me for another woman. Wait a minute. Wait, are you serious? And yeah, she wanted to work on this monologue. So make sure it's something that's age appropriate, something that you can really connect with. And personally, I don't recommend, unless you are a great writer. I know sometimes people will say, well, look, just write it yourself. You're going to know more about what you need to say and connect with if you write it. And that is true, but if you're not a really skilled writer and it doesn't flow properly and there's not, some kind of arc and there's not a change in the character and the words aren't right, then people are going to be listening to the words and think this just doesn't make sense, and your performance is out the window. So I would suggest that you find one that you really can connect with. Typically, and once again, maybe for the event, it's a little bit different, but typically you need a monologue that's a minute long. There are some auditions that you could go on where they ask for a 2-minute monologue. So I would just find out and make sure that you're right in that ballpark, and also remember that when you're actually doing it at the event, chances are you're going to be speeding it up a little bit just because of some of that energy. So anyhow, that's one of the key things. The other thing too is, don't forget, answer the 5 W's. And the other thing too is, and this is a big mistake that people make when they're doing a monologue, they start playing to the room. So let's say you've got a whole row of industry professionals. I've seen people do their monologue and they're, looking at the different people in the room and they're going back and forth like this. And I'm thinking, is the character they're talking to like running back and forth? It doesn't make any sense to me. So what you need to do is pick a spot in the room where you're having this conversation. So once again, just as an example, if I am doing a monologue, I might place the person right here. And this is where I'm talking. And I'm not saying I've got to be glued. I'm not saying, I can't like look away and come back, but I'm not, going back and forth and back and forth. There's the spot. That's where I'm talking. I would also recommend not looking directly into the eyes of the industry professionals at the event. Sometimes people just freak out a little bit. I mean, personally, I like speaking to people in person, eye to eye. Some people don't. So once again, let me just show you, if all the industry professionals are sitting right here, you can always pick a spot right above their head. And that way, kind of looks like you're talking to them, but you're not invading their space. So anyhow, those are some of the things that I would highly recommend with monologues. The one other thing I wanted to address, shooting auditions from home. And it's really important that everybody learns how to shoot auditions from home. Pretty much, I would say 99% of every audition that I do for projects in Atlanta, shoot them all in my home office. So just a couple things to keep in mind. And I mean, I could do an entire workshop about this, but a couple things. Make sure there is nothing behind you that stands out. You don't want pictures and paintings and wallpaper, and you want something plain. So if you are able to have a screen behind you, great. You could even buy, they're pretty inexpensive, just a green screen and attach it to a wall or something, or hang it up. That would be incredible. Or if you have a plain wall that's light colored, I mean, that would work as well. There are a couple other things you could try, like for instance, maybe even if none of those things work, just take a sheet, just make sure it's not all that wrinkled, and just hang it above you and have that as your background. So the other thing is, you've got to be heard. It's got to be really clear. And I typically will just use the microphone on my Mac laptop. I also happen to have a really good microphone that I'm using right now. But just make sure that whatever, even if you have a lavalier mic, those are the little mics that you can attach, to your shirt or something. And you can buy those probably like $17, $18 on Amazon. That's fine, because those sound, you can get, some that sound pretty good there. And it doesn't matter that it's visible. It's an audition. That's fine. A couple other really key things is make sure that you are lit in a way so that you don't have shadows behind you. You don't have shadows on your face. Your face is clear. Your eyes pop out. They can see eye color. So I have a light behind me that's actually on my screen that's shooting up. I've got 2 lights on the side of me, so my face is nice and even. And then you need a reader. And typically, like I was saying earlier, you want to have a reader that is camera left. That's typically where I like to have a reader. But if you're in a situation where you can't physically put somebody there, they can be anywhere in the room. But keep your eyes, right where that reader should be, even if they're sitting, somewhere over there. Make sure the reader isn't overpowering you. Make sure the reader is able to say the words smoothly. You don't want people to start focusing in on the reader. They're not getting the words out. They're stumbling over things. Some people will say, you got to have an actor who's reading with you. I typically don't, just because nobody in my family really acts. So I just get, somebody who can just read the words, and that's all that I need. And that's fine for me, because I know what I'm hearing from the other character. I can feel it, and then I respond to it. Whether they actually say it to me or not, it really doesn't matter. And probably the one other key thing, you just need to be able to do some basic, very basic editing, so that you can edit out the very beginning, like as you're getting things set up, and you hit the record button. You don't want that in there at the very end. You want to be able to cut it, at the end. You want to be able to crop things so you don't see things on the side that aren't necessary. And here's one other little hint, and this will be incredibly valuable to you. As a matter of fact, actually, you guys should probably go to I've got a YouTube channel. Let me see if I have it right here. Whoops, I just got out, but I just want to show you. It's right here. It's youtube.com/C/Aaron. Actually, let me open this thing back up so you can see it better. I just posted this fairly recently. I've got all these quick tips. They're free. Just go to my YouTube channel and just subscribe there. It's right here. And the quick tip is never end your audition on the last word. And that's what I was getting to with this audition. But this is something that you would use for any audition. Typically, when you finish reading the last word of the audition, most of the time people just stop. And that's not what you want to do. I mean, what you really want to do is fade it out. It's like listening to a great song. And normally when the song is starting to end, it just fades out, because when the person's really involved in your performance, you don't want to just make this quick cut. So let me give you a specific example to help explain what I'm talking about here. So let's say the very last line that somebody says to me, and I'm talking to somebody, and then they're about ready to walk out the door, and they say, all right, great, listen, I'll see you tomorrow. Okay. So instead of hearing that line, boom, and then stopping the audition, what I'm going to do is I'm going to follow the person out the room, because they said, I'll see you tomorrow. I'm leaving, I'll see you tomorrow. And I'll follow the person out of the room. Now, I'm not going to go profile, I'm just going to go a little bit and just kind of follow them out. Think about what just happened, and then come back. Then I end it. That's interesting. That makes it much more interesting. And the other thing too is you want to create a life for your character prior to the scene starting. So I like to think about maybe a key word to say that helps get me started, or once again, and I know we got to wind things up here, but let's say, for instance, my first line is, hey, everybody, I'm really sorry I'm late to the meeting. Okay. So instead of starting off just saying that line, hey guys, I'm really sorry I'm late to the meeting, I'm thinking, okay, so what happened with my character? Okay, so traffic was horrible. Streets were blocked. I'm 10 minutes late and I'm really embarrassed by this and I feel very unprofessional and I'm running down the hallway, running up 2 flights of stairs. And it's just like, hey guys, I'm really sorry. I really apologize for being late. And I'm feeling, a little anxious about it. And I'm breathing a little heavy because I'm, dashing down. Now that makes sense. You're creating life in that character prior to the scene starting and letting it filter through the scene. Same way with it ending. So anyhow, I just wanted to share that with you. For the very end, right before we go to Q&A. And once again, if you do have questions, always you can feel free to reach out to me. I've got my contact information, right here, just aaron@howtoactamodel.com. More than happy to try to answer things for you. But anyhow, here are all the different ways that you can reach out to me for different things that I offer. But especially, I'm telling you, the YouTube channel would be really great for you as well. But some things you want to do, and this is for after the event, continue to study, no matter what happens. Whether you get a call back or you don't get a call back, let me just tell you, that's not any kind of indication as to what kind of success you're going to have in this industry. There are 1,000,001 reasons why that might happen. So I want to make sure that you don't walk out of there thinking, well, I guess I can't work in this industry because nobody, that's not true. You have no idea. Maybe you need to work a little bit harder. Maybe you need to have more experience. Maybe you need to take more classes, read more books, actually have on-the-job training with something, maybe doing some mentoring sessions, whatever it is. Maybe you need to go back again, and give it a second shot. And it's not uncommon for people who go back, have a very different kind of experience. Continue to put new photos together. Just because you have some photos done doesn't mean that that's it. You're just at the very beginning stages. And we all are updating photos. We're all putting new things together. And, really make sure that you really appreciate everything that you've done here. And I know that sometimes people say, well, what's there to appreciate? I haven't done anything yet. You have. You are doing something that most people dream about, think about, and never do. And they'll give you millions of reasons why they don't. But what it really comes down to is they don't have the courage that you do. It's scary. It's scary to walk in and open yourself up and perform for strangers and to, really show some emotions. It can be very scary. And what you are about to do, it's courageous. And I just want to say to you, I have so much respect for what you're doing. It's really, really incredible. And if this is something you want to do, don't let one event stop you. Like I said, keep going. Maybe go back again, a second time and see, what happens again, but keep going after it. So anyhow, that's what I wanted to share with you this evening. And I am ready to do any kind of Q&As. More than happy to try to answer any questions that you have. Hopefully I can. And so are there any questions that did come in?
Currently, we do not have any questions. Everybody, if you look at the very bottom of your screen, there is a chat box, and then there's also a Q&A box you can click on, send us any questions about anything that Aaron went over that we can answer for you guys.
And if not, hey, look, I completely get it. Sometimes, especially after sitting here almost like an hour and a half, you're just kind of overwhelmed with information. Sometimes people just don't know what to ask. So, and that's fine too. And like I said earlier, if something pops up for you later, I always try to make myself available for people. So you can always reach out to me as well at some point. It's just Aaron, Aaron, at howtoactamodel.com. And I'm more than happy to try to answer a question for you.
All right, we have a few questions popping up, and I believe y'all should be able to see them as well because they were sent to the panelists. Let me unmute you, Rebecca. Oh. All right.
Hey, Erin, I just wanted to say thank you so much for hosting this session. I'm sure that people have learned so much this evening that they can apply to the event. And like you said, you know, for a career ahead of them in this industry. And so we really appreciate it. And I know we'll be seeing more of you. And I'm at home, so my cat has to make an appearance here. Better than my 2 screaming kids. So anyways, I just wanted to tell everybody thank you so much also for joining the session tonight. And as Amber said, you know, we're here also if you guys have questions, you all know how to reach me. Amber is accessible as well. And I'm going to hop on the end of Kara's virtual audition and say hi, but I just wanted to thank you again, Aaron, and we will
welcome.
Be in touch. And you guys have a great night, and I can't wait to see you guys in April. Thanks a lot.
Sure, it's my pleasure.
Bye.
Bye.
All right. Aaron, it looks like we just have 2 questions. One of them is asking if you're coming to the Expo.
Okay, that I don't know. That would be a question for you and Rebecca. I really have no idea. So love to, but we'll see.
Yeah, we'll see what happens. And then Courtney has a question. She's wanting to know, how can she break this down and apply everything to her kids?
Got it. So, I mean, what you want to do, and I know it's a lot of information. I hope you took a lot of notes. You know, certainly I couldn't possibly say to you everything in, you know, in an hour and a half that I have in my book. The book would be really, really helpful to you. But, you know, you're the one who can easily help guide your child and practice this stuff with your child. Even like, for instance, when I was talking earlier about showing different emotions. So sit down, you know, with your child. You can use your cell phone as the camera and say, okay, so let's play around with this expression. Let's say you just got, you know, your favorite toy for your birthday. Let me see it. And then, you know, walk your child through that process of how they can come up with that idea. And then take, you know, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 pictures and then look at it. And if you feel like your child really hit those, you know, expressions in a believable way, well, then you've got it. And every time, because look, you are going to be there. I mean, depending on the age of your child, but, you know, if it's a minor, you're going to be there on the set. And so, you know, you'll be there to make sure that they're able to do the things that you help them with.
All right, great answer. Let's see, we got some more coming in. Let's see. One question from James says, how does he go about finding an agent, or they reach out to him?
Okay. So, well, first of all, by going to the event, you're going to be in front of a lot of agents, which is really an incredible opportunity. But there are many different ways of finding agents, you know, on your own as well. Let's see. One of the things, actually, if you go, I've got a special page on my website. If you go to howtoactamodel.com/home, HOME, so that's howtoactamodel.com/home, I have a link on the top of the page. And I think I have about 427 agents from every state in the US, a few from outside the US as well. And that is one way of trying to find agents. But here's something else that you can do. I think this is a really good idea, and I know people who've had success with this. I did, and I tried it. I went to watch some local theater in my town, and I don't live in a major market. And at the end of the play, I walked over to some of the actors and told them how great they were and loved the play. And I said, look, I'm interested in doing TV commercials. This is what I was doing at that time, TV commercials, maybe some commercial modeling ads. Can you give me the names of some of the agents in the area that you would recommend I check out? And I start getting names, and certain agencies start popping up over and over and over again. Those are the ones that I started to see. But one thing just to keep in mind, make sure you are prepared. Make sure you've got the right photos. Make sure your resume is in the right format. Make sure you've had some training, because you don't want to make a bad impression with someone, because that can be a very long-lasting thing. So, just make sure you're ready. But then once you are, yeah, that's another way of finding agents.
All right. Let's see. Emily wants to know, how did you reassure yourself that you could pursue modeling and acting and succeed in it?
Oh, I didn't. I had no idea. And here's the crazy thing. I started off doing acting and modeling just on a part-time basis when I was a full-time college student. And to be completely transparent here, it's not like, I was young and I, always had these aspirations of, being successful. And I never had any thoughts at all of doing this kind of work. I met an actor when I was in college. He told me what he did. He was doing mostly TV commercials. And I thought, wow, that sounds like fun. So what I did was I needed a job when I was in school. And some people were, working at fast food restaurants. Some people were waiting tables and things like that. And I thought, well, I want to do something that, number one, I'm going to really have fun with, or I thought I would have fun with. Two, that had really flexible hours, because I'm a full-time college student. I was a full-time college student at that point, and one that paid a lot. So the guy was telling me about what he did, and I thought, well, it sounds interesting. And so I didn't go into it thinking, oh, yeah, I'm going to be successful. I've been studying all these years. And so I did it, and I wouldn't say as a lark, but I just went in and I just tested the waters. And personally, I think it's a great idea to start off just on a part-time basis and see what it feels like. Do you enjoy the process? Do you enjoy the auditioning? Do you enjoy the jobs? Does it bring you joy? And the other thing too is, before you consider, really seriously pursuing and doing it, as a full-time job, because most of the people I know do it part-time. They're full-time students or they have full-time jobs, and they periodically take time off and do this. But, the other thing to keep in mind is, can your stomach handle being a freelancer? Being self-employed? Not everybody can. So my suggestion, instead of thinking about, well, how do I really know it? Don't even think in those, just do it. Just go out there and do it, see what happens, and trust your instincts, trust your gut. Is this something you're enjoying? I'm not saying there aren't aspects of the industry that aren't hard, that can be frustrating. Of course they are. I mean, like in any kind of business, but I've never had specific goals in mind, and I've just been very fortunate with it. And so anyhow, just go out there and give it a shot.
All right, let's see. Someone's wanting to know if it would be easier to wait until after the event to start going out for auditions.
Well, so look, I think it's always good to get experience. And so I would say, if you have the opportunity to audition now, do it, because that will help your auditions at the event even more, because you will have done it more. So yeah, I would say definitely go out and audition if you can, as long as you are prepared, once again, to audition and you know what you're doing. Sure, get as much experience as you can, because the more knowledgeable you are and the more experience you have, the greater the chances are that you're going to be doing a great job at the event.
Yeah, I completely agree with that 100%. If you have the opportunity, go for it. All right, let's see. Jim says that he is new to the industry and he just wants, some examples of how to expand his current portfolio.
So there are a number of different ways of doing it. Here's a really interesting thing to do. And number one, make sure you know how to put together the right photos. I mean, that's key. Once you have that information, I would contact some local colleges, universities, or community colleges in your area and go online and see who is teaching photography classes at those schools. Then get in touch with the instructors and find out also what kind of photography, it is. And then speak to the instructor and say, look, I've got some really interesting ideas, because you are going to be doing all your homework ahead of time. You're going to know exactly what emotions you need, what kind of wardrobe, what kind of props, what kind of backgrounds, location you're going to have. Because essentially you're going to be producing this shot. Once you've got all that down and you have practiced getting the right emotions, then try to find a student. And you're going to work out a deal with the student, and you're going to let them know that you're going to work out a deal where they can shoot you, and they're not going to charge you anything, and you're not going to charge them your regular modeling fee. And essentially you're bartering. And this is a great way to build up a commercial portfolio. And I know people who've put together entire portfolios at no cost just by working with students. But here's the key thing is, you have got to know how to put the shots together. I would not rely on a student. Chances are they're going to be clueless as to what to do. So just make sure you've got the information ahead of time.
Yeah, I completely agree with that. Make sure you know what you're going to shoot, and then always just look for opportunities. I've actually just recently did some shoots for free because someone wanted to do some test shoots, and I got some awesome pictures for my portfolio. So that was a great answer.
And just to add one other thing to it, and I'm always a little bit hesitant to say this, but I feel a need to say it, so I'm going to say it anyway. Whether, no matter who you are, just because you're dealing with a, college student doesn't mean that they're sane. So if you're going to set up a shoot with somebody, personally, I would recommend bring somebody with you.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying they've got to sit on your lap during the photo shoot, but if you're shooting out in a park, someplace, have them sitting in their cars, someplace where they can at least just watch, observe, make sure that everything is okay. Even if it's in somebody's studio, they can sit outside the studio. That's fine. But and once again, I hate to say it, but it's like with a lot of different kinds of jobs, you just need to be smart and take care of yourself and make sure that you're safe.
Yeah, I completely agree. Your safety is always the first most important thing. I think we have 2 more new questions.
Okay.
And then if no more come in after that, we'll go ahead and wrap it up.
Okay.
This one is from Anonymous. I want to ask if there's any piece of advice that you know now that you would give to your younger self before stepping into the industry, what would it be?
Yeah, that's a great question, Mr. or Mrs. Anonymous. This is exactly it. Don't take anything personally in this industry. When I first started, agents were turning me down, wasn't getting the jobs. I would beat myself up. It was hard. I felt bad about myself. And it's easy to do that. You're not good looking enough. You're not tall enough. Your body's not good enough. There are 1,000,001 reasons. And it took me a long time to figure out there's nothing personal in this business. You don't book the job. If you're a good person, you're still a good person. And I'm not saying don't feel bad, but there's a difference between feeling bad because you didn't book something that you wanted to get and feeling bad about yourself. And I think that's probably the one lesson that I wish I really had down when I first got started.
Yeah, that's awesome. That's awesome advice. I always I always tell people when I hold auditions for them, like, if you hear a no, like, it's okay. Like, it's okay to hear a no. Maybe like today just wasn't your day, but there's a job out there for everybody. Like, keep persevering and pushing through.
And you know, and you hit on something really interesting, and I love this expression and this saying. Just always remember, no doesn't mean never.
Yeah. Once I learned that, you know, I was good to go. All right, it looks like we just have one last question. Let's see. It's from Courtney again. It says, I agree with all the advice on shooting different emotions. Is it expected for kids as young as 5 to nail a self-tape audition? Obviously, practice is key, but would there be anything else you may not have mentioned for child actors? Aaron, are you still there? Thank you, froze on us. Aaron? Can you hear me? Give us 1 second, Courtney. Let me see if I can get him back with us. Oh, I'm not sure what happened. I think he might have lost connection. All right, well, Courtney, I apologize for that. Looks like he somehow has lost connection with us. But I personally would say that, of course, like, it's not expected for a 5-year-old to, you know, nail it perfectly. People in this industry who understand their kids, who understand, you know, they're learning and they're absorbing things. So, like, it's totally okay if, you know, a child has a hiccup more than an adult would. I mean, they're 5. Like, it's expected. And then as far as the question that you had, Courtney, about any advice on choosing an agency if you're offered more than once, definitely, I mean, you can come to us, you can come to Corey and Rebecca, ask us questions, but just do your research on those different agents. Like, all right, so this agency is, you know, located more closer to where we live. Or, you know, this agent is located states away. Am I willing to travel with a 5-year-old for jobs or auditions? Because a lot of times, you know, you might have to travel as well. So just make sure you do your research, and then ask us questions. I mean, that's what we're here for, from start to finish afterwards. I know Rebecca said at the beginning of this, you know, there's some people that's on our roster from 10 years ago that they still ask us questions. They still want to know what's the best thing that they should do. Yes, I'm pretty sure that, I don't know what happened to Aaron, but he froze on us. But he did give us his email address, so if there's any questions.
Hey, Amber. Hi.
Oh, there you are.
I am so sorry. I lost, you know, we've been having this crazy weather. I just lost power there for like
wow.
20 seconds. It just like went down and popped back up.
Question for you.
Okay. So you're still able to see my screen, right?
Yes, I can. Oh, no, I just see you.
You just see, oh, you don't see my screen.
Mm-mm.
Okay.
You have to reshare it with us.
Sure. Oh boy. That's a first for me. Never had that happen.
Like, Aaron, what happened?
It's like dropping the microphone at the end of the.
I mean, I can answer some of these questions, but you definitely have way more experience and knowledge than I have. I've only been in the industry for 5 years.
Okay, so now are you still seeing me?
Yes, I can see you, and I can see you.
Okay, you know what? All right, I don't know why. Let me see if. Okay, and so you're still not seeing my screen though.
No.
Okay, so yeah, that was weird. All of a sudden, you know, it just went poof. Okay, so anyhow, I'm back. Oh, you know what? Maybe I could do this. How about this?
Yes, I can see your screen.
Yay! Okay, well, I'm glad it was only like 20 seconds there. Okay,
that was crazy.
So.
Do you need me to re-say the question for you?
Yes, because I didn't hear it.
Okay, absolutely. It was Courtney. I tried my best to answer it, but of course you have more knowledge.
Okay.
I agree with the advice on shooting different emotions. Is it expected for kids as young as 5 to nail a self-tape audition? Obviously, practice is key, but would there be any other or anything else you may have not mentioned for kid actors?
Okay. Oh, I'm a little bit unsure of what's being asked. So, um,
I think she's just asking, like, is it expected for like a 5-year-old
like to
whenever
have a
they're
perfect audition.
submitting auditions, like to have a perfect auditions,
Okay.
and maybe if there's any, tips other than practice is key.
Yeah. Okay. Okay. Got it. So here's one thing to always keep in mind is that there is no such thing as a perfect audition. That's number one. Um, if you're doing an audition and somebody goofs up and makes a mistake on a word, it's okay. It's an audition. It's not like the Olympics where, they expect perfection and you get graded on that and rated, on those things. So my suggestion is don't try to make it perfect. And if you're doing, let's say, a home audition, if there are a couple of mistakes, here or there, don't keep doing it over and over and over and over and over again, because then it's going to feel stale. So my thought is, yeah, practice a little bit, make sure that the feeling is there, that things seem right with it. And, if your child's in the ballpark, use it, whether it's perfect or not, because once again, they're not looking for perfection. When I'm shooting a movie, there's a scene like there was a film called Fishbowl, and I was the preacher, and I give this long. One of the things I do is I give this long sermon to everybody in my congregation. Well, I did this scene 19 times. And the reason why it was 19 times, well, the director likes to shoot a lot, but the other thing too is they're doing, a wide shot of everything. And then they're turning all the cameras and the lights around, and they're shooting over the shoulder of my congregation, and it's my close-up. And then they'll turn everything around that's over my shoulder, and they're doing close-ups of people in my congregation. So if you make a mistake or a couple mistakes during an audition, don't worry about it. The most important thing is, does the person look right for the part? That's number one. Two, do you sound conversational? Or do you sound like you're acting? I don't want people to sound like they're acting. I want somebody who sounds like they're just talking to somebody. And three, is there something interesting with this character? That's what they're looking for. So don't put that kind of pressure on yourself or your child. Just, certainly practice it, prepare it, and do it a couple times. And don't worry about whether it being exact.
Yeah, I completely agree. All right, so it looks like we have one last question. So
Okay.
if y'all have a question that you want to get in really quick, if not, we're going to end on this last question. And then, of course, if you come up with a question or something like later on down the road that you didn't think of, you can always email me or Rebecca, and we can definitely help you get those answers. So the last question that we're going to go ahead and do is, how important is investing?
Is investing. So I'm assuming you're meaning investing in classes, investing in books. Is that
Yeah,
what you're?
that's what I'm assuming. Can you clarify for us? Are you talking about classes, photos, just in your craft in general? Like, can you narrow it down for us a little bit, please?
Because basically, assuming that we're in the
Yes,
right
you
direction.
said
Yeah.
in companies and classes. Absolutely.
Yeah. So look, here's how you want to view it. You are starting a new business, and you are the franchisee. This is your business. This is your company. And like with any business, you have startup costs. And along with startup costs, you've got to keep reinvesting in the company in order to make it successful. And it's the same thing for acting and or modeling. So yeah, take classes, do private mentoring sessions, read books. Going to the event is a great investment for you. But absolutely, after the event or even before the event, continue to invest in yourself, because that's your responsibility. Agents don't put up money for you to put together a headshot or commercial photos. It is true sometimes in the fashion world, sometimes agents will front the money for photos, or they might pay for your flight if they're sending you to, Japan, or they're sending you to Europe or some other places in Asia. But you're going to pay them back because they're going to take the money out of your earnings. They're assuming you're going to work. But that's not always the case, but that's only in the fashion world. For our world, I've paid for every one of my classes, for all of my headshots, all my commercial shots, all the books I read, all the private sessions I have taken. I'm investing in my company, and I am the company, because the better that I am, the greater the chances are I'm going to have success. So yes, that's a great question. And yeah, keep investing.
Yeah, I always say you are investing in yourself. You're investing in your future. If it's something that you truly love and you have a passion for, like, always try to better yourself, because there's always new techniques. There's always, people out there with more knowledge than you have, that have been in the business longer, that you can really grow and learn from. Like Aaron here with us today. So I think we're going to go ahead and wrap it up. I'm going to finish typing an answer to you right now, Melissa, because it pertains mostly to the event, and I can answer that for you. But if you guys have any other questions that maybe, like I said, you think about later on down the road, most of y'all have Rebecca's email. My email is amber.discoveryspotlight@gmail.com. And then there's all of Aaron's contacts right there on the screen. So I'm sure you can reach out to him as well. And then definitely check out his YouTube page. He's full of knowledge, all this information. He's been doing this for a long time, and he's had major success in this business. So yeah, well, I'm just going to go ahead and say, everybody have a great night. Thanks for hanging out with us. Aaron, do you have any final words?
I just want to say, guys, have a great time at the event. It's just an unbelievable experience for you, something that you've probably never done before in your life. And what a great opportunity to learn, make connections, have fun, meet people from all different walks of life. And, when you get back home, take a couple days off and then hit the pavement running again, and take all the information that you've learned from the event and continue and really, keep your career moving ahead. And very last thing, here's all of my contact information, really, and I make myself available to people. Feel free to reach out to me, and I'm more than happy to try to answer any questions that you have.